I walked outside one morning, coffee still hot in my hand, and I froze. The hedge I'd spent nearly a decade growing, trimming, shaping, gone, cut down to bare stumps, hacked apart overnight. And the worst part, it wasn't vandals, it was my own HOA president. Act 1. The conflict begins. My name's Terence Holt. I'm 42, a licensed electrician, been living in Willow Creek Estates for over a decade. Paid my dues, kept my property clean, never once caused a problem. My pride and joy wasn't flashy cars or lawn statues. It was the hedge, thick, green, 10 feet tall, running along the front of my yard. To me, it was more than landscaping, it was privacy. A living wall that made my home feel like mine, until the day it wasn't. That morning, I stepped out onto the porch, looked toward the street and felt my stomach drop. My hedge had been stripped bare. The whole thing cut to the ground, like it never existed, branches piled on the curb like trash. And standing there, clipboard in hand, was Deborah Clean, the HOA president, blonde bob, sharp blazer, that smug smirk she always carried like a badge of authority. Morning, she said, like she'd just dropped off cookies. Those hedges were non-compliant, over 6 feet, against the rules, I stammered. You destroyed my property, without even telling me. She didn't blink. We warned you in last month's newsletter. You should have read it. You'll thank me later. It improves curb appeal. Curb appeal. My hedge. My privacy. Butchered because she decided it looked wrong. I wanted to scream. Instead, I clenched my fists and asked, "Who gave you the right?" Her smirk widened. The HOA board. If you don't like it, maybe you're not fit for this community. And with that, she walked off, leaving me staring at stumps where my sanctuary used to be. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about hedges. This was about control. And Deborah thought she owned us all. Ciao. Act 2. Escalation and doubt. It only escalated from there. Neighbors whispered about the hedge guy, like I was some problem child. Deborah strutted around telling people I was combative and resistant to community standards. One evening, I confronted her at the HOA office. She leaned back in her chair, tapping that damn clipboard. "Mr. Holt, this is bigger than you. We set rules to protect property values. If you can't follow them, maybe this isn't the neighborhood for you." I stormed out, but her words stuck. That night, I sat in my empty yard, staring at the raw stumps. For the first time since I'd bought that house, I felt exposed, vulnerable, like anyone driving by could see straight into my life. And I thought, maybe she's right. Maybe I don't belong here. I pictured selling, moving away, starting over. The thought of uprooting my family burned like acid, but so did the feeling of helplessness. At 3 a.m., I was still awake. I grabbed a notepad, scribbling ideas, lawsuits, replanting, formal complaints. Every option felt like begging for permission from the very people who'd wronged me. Then my pen froze. What if I didn't ask? What if I built something they couldn't touch? That's when the idea hit me. A cinder block wall. Not a hedge they could cut. Not wood they could find me over. A wall solid, permanent, undeniable. The next morning, I drove to Home Depot, loaded up on blocks and mortar, and by noon, I was stacking. Neighbors peeked out their windows. Some shook their heads. Others whispered. A few gave me quiet thumbs-ups. I didn't care. Every block I laid was a statement. I decide my boundaries, not Deborah. Of course, it didn't take long for her to show up. Clipboard in hand, heels clicking across the sidewalk, voice sharp enough to cut steel. "Stop this immediately," she barked. "That wall is a violation." I wiped sweat from my forehead, set the next block, and said calmly, "No violation in the bylaws against cinder block. Check your paperwork." Her jaw clenched. "I'll fine you every day until it comes down." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You cut down my hedge without permission. This wall, this is my permission." For the first time, her smirk cracked. Wow. Act 3. Climax and justice. A week later, I got a notice. $200 fine, unauthorized construction. Then another. Then threats of legal action. But I kept building. The wall grew higher, straighter, stronger. And so did the support from my neighbors. People stopped by, handed me bottles of water, muttered, "About time someone stood up to her." Finally, Deborah called for an emergency HOA meeting. I showed up, dust still on my hands, ready for whatever came. She sat at the head of the table, gavel in hand, eyes blazing. "Mr. Holt, your wall violates HOA standards. It must come down immediately." I stood, looked around the crowded room, neighbors who'd all suffered her fines, her nitpicking, her tyranny. Then I said, loud and clear. My hedge was destroyed without warning. My privacy was stolen. And when I pushed back, I was threatened, fined, and harassed. If this wall bothers you, ask yourself, why do I need it in the first place? Murmurs spread. Heads nodded. A woman in the back shouted, she fined me $100 for kids' toys in my yard. Another added, she threatened to tow my car for parking in my own driveway. The dam broke. People stood, angry voices filling the room, years of resentment boiling over. Deborah slammed her gavel, shouting for order, but no one listened. Her authority was crumbling right there in her hands. One neighbor stood beside me, then another, then a dozen. Finally, someone called for a vote. Hands went up, dozens of them. The HOA board members, sensing the tide, had no choice. They removed her from her position on the spot. I'll never forget the look on her face. That perfect smirk, finally gone, replaced with panic. And when I walked out of that meeting, the air felt different, lighter. For the first time in months, I wasn't the outcast. I was the man who stood up and said, enough. The wall still stands today, strong, straight, a reminder to anyone who drives by. This is my home, and no one, not even the HOA, gets to take that away. Final line lesson. Sometimes, to protect your peace, you have to build a wall not just of brick, but of resolve. Boundaries aren't given to you. You claim them.